I'd been on my feet for 23 hours straight, delivering triplets to a first-time mother who screamed like she was being murdered. My scrub still had traces of blood, and my hair was a mess, but all I could think about was coffee. The kind of coffee that could wake the dead. The convenience store's fluorescent lights buzzed like angry wasps as I pushed through the glass doors at 3 a.m. The teenage clerk barely looked up from his phone, probably used to seeing walking disasters like me stumble in during the graveyard shift. My legs felt like lead as I made my way to the coffee station, only to find an empty pot with a burnt crust at the bottom. "Shit," I muttered, loud enough to make the blonde woman next to me chuckle. She was wearing a crisp white shirt and black slacks, looking way too put together for this hour. "Rough night?" she asked, her blue eyes crinkling at the corners with amusement. "Try rough year," I replied, then immediately regretted sounding so pathetic. "I'm Kira, by the way. Professional baby catcher and caffeine addict." "Melanie," she said, reaching past me to grab the last packet of premium roast. "Professional insomniac and bar manager. Here, we can share this one." There was something about her voice that made me pause, a hint of warmth beneath the professional polish. As she expertly worked the coffee machine, I noticed her hands, strong but graceful, with short practical nails and a tan line where a wedding ring used to be. "So, what keeps a bar manager up at this hour?" I asked, accepting the steaming cup she offered. Our fingers brushed, and I felt an unexpected tingle that had nothing to do with the heat of the coffee. "Running from ghosts," she said with a half smile. "You?" "Helping create new life. 3 of them, actually. Triplets." "Gosh," she whistled low. "No wonder you look like you've been through war." We ended up sharing a bench outside the store, watching the stars fade as dawn approached. Melanie told me about her bar, the Nightingale, and how she'd bought it after her divorce. I shared stories about the crazy things expecting fathers do in the delivery room. "You should stop by sometime," she said as we finished our coffee. "First drinks on the house." I nodded, knowing I probably wouldn't. Bars weren't really my scene, especially not after spending most of my days in a sterile hospital environment. But something about Melanie made me want to reconsider. As I watched her walk away, her blonde hair catching the first rays of sunrise, I couldn't shake the feeling that this chance encounter meant something more. Maybe it was exhaustion playing tricks on my mind, or maybe it was the way she'd looked at me, like she could see past my disheveled exterior to something worth knowing. I drove home in a daze, replaying our conversation in my head. It had been months since I'd connected with anyone outside of work, let alone a stranger in a convenience store at 3 a.m. There was something about Melanie that felt both familiar and dangerous, like a song you know you shouldn't listen to but can't get out of your head. Little did I know, this wouldn't be our last middle-of-the-night encounter. In fact, it was just the beginning of a story that would turn both our worlds upside down. 2 weeks after our convenience store encounter, I found myself standing outside the Nightingale, clutching a wrinkled, help-wanted flyer. The hospital had cut my hours, and I needed extra income to keep up with my mortgage. A part-time bartending gig seemed like a decent solution, even though my only experience was mixing formula for babies. The afternoon sun caught the bar's vintage neon sign, making it flicker like a nervous heartbeat. I pushed open the heavy wooden door, and the cool air hit me along with the scent of polished wood and lemon cleaner. The place was empty except for a woman restocking bottles behind the bar, her back turned to me. "We're not open yet," she called out without turning around. "I'm here about the job posting," I said, then froze as she turned around. It was Melanie, looking even more striking in daylight, her blonde hair pulled back in a sleek ponytail. Recognition flickered across her face, followed by something else I couldn't quite read. "Coffee girl," she said with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Or should I say, baby catcher? "Kira," I reminded her, trying to ignore the way my pulse quickened. "I didn't know this was your place. Would you have come if you did?" The question hung between us like smoke. I shrugged, attempting nonchalance. "I need the job. The hospital cut hours, and babies aren't being born fast enough to pay my bills." She studied me for a moment, then gestured to the bar stool. "Show me how you make an old-fashioned." "I can't," I admitted, "but I'm a quick learner. You should see how fast I can prepare an epidural." That earned me a genuine laugh. Medical skills and cocktails aren't exactly transferable. "Try me," I challenged, surprised by my own boldness. Over the next hour, Melanie taught me the basics. Her hands guided mine through proper pouring techniques, our fingers brushing more often than necessary. She was a patient teacher, and I found myself watching her lips as she explained the difference between shaking and stirring. "You're hired," she finally said, "but only because you're the first applicant who hasn't hit on me." "The night's still young," I joked, then immediately regretted it when I saw her stiffen. "Sorry, I didn't mean." "It's fine," she cut me off. "Start tomorrow at 6, wear black." Working at the Nightingale quickly became the highlight of my week. Between delivering babies and serving drinks, I barely had time to sleep, but something kept drawing me back. Maybe it was the way Melanie would catch my eye across the bar, or how our hands would brush during shift changes. One night after closing, she opened up about her marriage. 8 years of pretending, she said, nursing a whiskey. He was a good man, just not what I needed. "What did you need?" I asked, my throat suddenly dry. Before she could answer, the back door banged open as the kitchen staff left for the night. The moment shattered like ice in a warm glass. Days turned into weeks, and I found myself looking forward to our quiet moments after closing. We'd talk about everything and nothing, failed relationships, career choices, dreams we'd abandoned. She never finished telling me what she really needed, but sometimes, when she thought I wasn't looking, I'd catch her watching me with an intensity that made my skin tingle. I told myself it was just friendship, just two divorced women finding common ground. But deep down, I knew there was something more brewing between us, something as potent as the spirits we served, something that scared me as much as it thrilled me. And then came the night that changed everything. The night a pregnant teenager walked into the hospital, and Melanie's carefully constructed walls began to crumble. The girl couldn't have been more than 16, clutching her swollen belly as tears streamed down her face. Her parents hadn't come with her, she hadn't told them yet. As I prepped her for examination, I noticed Melanie's business card falling from her purse. "You know Melanie Foster?" I asked, trying to keep my voice casual. The girl Sarah nodded. "She's my aunt. Please don't tell her I'm here." My heart stopped for a moment. In all our late-night conversations, Melanie had never mentioned a pregnant niece. Sarah's next words hit me like a punch to the gut. She had a baby too when she was my age. They made her give it up. The revelation haunted me through my shift. When I arrived at the Nightingale that evening, Melanie was different, distracted, dropping glasses, snapping at customers. She must have heard about Sarah. "Take a break," I told her after she nearly served vodka to a designated driver. "I've got this." She disappeared into her office without a word. An hour passed, then 2. The bar was quieting down when I finally knocked on her door, carrying 2 cups of convenience store coffee, a peace offering of sorts. "Go away, Kira." Her voice was thick with tears. I went in, anyway. She sat behind her desk, looking smaller somehow, more vulnerable. A photo lay face down on her desk. I caught a glimpse of a much younger Melanie holding something wrapped in pink. "Sarah's going to be fine," I said softly, setting the coffee down. "She's scared, but healthy." "I should have known," Melanie whispered. "Should have seen the signs. History repeating itself like some cruel joke." I moved around the desk, perching on its edge. "You can't protect everyone, Mel." I couldn't even protect myself. She looked up at me, her blue eyes swimming with unshed tears. "Do you know what it's like to carry a secret that eats you alive? To spend your whole life trying to be what everyone else wants?" Without thinking, I reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. She leaned into my touch, just slightly, but enough to make my breath catch. "I gave her up," Melanie continued. "My daughter, I let them convince me it was the right thing to do. Then I married Tom, ran this bar, played the perfect wife, all to prove I could be normal, that I could be what they wanted." "And what do you want?" I asked, my hand still lingering near her face. The silence stretched between us, electric with possibility. Then Melanie stood up, bringing us face to face, close enough that I could feel her breath on my lips. "This," she whispered, and kissed me. It was soft at first, tentative, like testing water with your toe. Then her hands were in my hair, and mine were at her waist, and the world tilted on its axis. She tasted like coffee and tears, and something I'd been craving without knowing it. The knock on the office door jerked us apart. "Boss?" called one of the bartenders. "We've got a situation out here." Melanie stepped back, straightening her shirt with trembling hands. "We should." She gestured vaguely at the door. "Yeah," I agreed. though every cell in my body screamed to pull her back. We returned to the bar, professional masks back in place, but everything had changed. Every accidental touch, every shared glance now carried the weight of that kiss. The rest of the night passed in a blur of mixed drinks and meaningful looks, neither of us quite ready to acknowledge what had happened. As I drove home in the pre-dawn hours, my lips still tingling, I realized we'd crossed a line we couldn't uncross. The question was, were we brave enough to keep going forward, or would we retreat back into our carefully constructed lives of pretense and safety? I touched my lips, remembering the taste of her kiss, and knew my own answer. But Melanie's story, her pain, her secret, they complicated everything. And somewhere in a hospital bed, her niece slept, unaware that her situation had unleashed something that would change all our lives forever. The next 3 days, Melanie and I danced around each other like wary cats. She scheduled us on opposite shifts, and when we did overlap, our conversations stayed strictly professional. The kiss hung between us, unacknowledged but impossible to forget. I needed someone to talk to before I lost my mind, so I called Marcus, my gay best friend since medical school. We met at his veterinary clinic during his lunch break. "Spill it," he said, noting my distracted expression. "Who's got you looking like you've seen a ghost?" I told him everything, the convenience store meeting, the bar job, the kiss. He listened while treating a Persian cat's ear infection, occasionally raising an eyebrow. "So you're telling me you're having a sexual identity crisis at 34? He smirked. "Welcome to the rainbow side, honey. We have better music." "I'm serious, Marcus. I've always been straight." He set down the cotton swab and fixed me with his no-nonsense stare. "Have you? Or have you just never let yourself consider the alternatives?" His words hit home harder than I expected. I thought about all my failed relationships with men. How something had always felt slightly off, like wearing shoes on the wrong feet. But what about my job? My reputation? The hospital board isn't exactly progressive. "Honey," Marcus sighed, "you deliver babies. You don't need to be straight to catch them." That evening, I arrived at the Nightingale early for my shift. Melanie was in her office, door open, talking on the phone. Her voice carried, stressed and sharp. "Mother, I can't just send Sarah away. No, I won't make the same mistake because it nearly destroyed me." She slammed the phone down, then noticed me in the doorway. "How long have you been standing there?" "Long enough," I admitted. "Want to talk about it?" "Not here." She grabbed her keys. "Let's get some air." We walked in silence through the back alley, past dumpsters and delivery trucks. The sky was growing dark, heavy with approaching rain. "My mother wants to send Sarah to the same home they sent me to," Melanie finally said, "to avoid scandal. As if teenage pregnancy is still shocking in 2023. What are you going to do?" "Fight back this time." She stopped walking, turned to face me. "I'm tired of hiding, Kira, tired of pretending." The first drops of rain began to fall. Neither of us moved. "The kiss," I started. "I don't regret it," she cut in. "But I understand if you want to forget it happened." Thunder rumbled overhead. The rain intensified, plastering our clothes to our skin. "What if I don't want to forget?" My voice was barely audible over the downpour. She stepped closer, her eyes searching mine. "Are you sure? Because I can't do halfway. Not anymore." Instead of answering, I kissed her. Right there in the rain, behind her bar, with the thunder as our soundtrack. This kiss was different from our first, desperate, hungry, years of denial crumbling in the storm. When we finally broke apart, we were both laughing and crying, mascara running down our faces. "We look ridiculous," I gasped. "We look free," she corrected. Back inside, drying off in her office, reality started creeping back in. "People will talk," I said, wringing out my hair. "Let them," Melanie replied, but I could see the worry in her eyes. Her business, her family, her niece, everything was at stake. My phone buzzed, a text from Marcus. "Did you figure it out yet?" I looked at Melanie, who was trying to salvage her running makeup in a compact mirror. Her blonde hair was dark with rain, her expensive blouse ruined, and she'd never looked more beautiful. "Yeah," I texted back. "I think I have." What I didn't know then was that our rain-soaked revelation was about to trigger a storm of its own, one that would test everything we thought we knew about ourselves, our families, and what we were willing to risk for love. The thunder outside was just the opening act. The text from my ex-husband arrived like a missile during morning rounds. "We need to talk about Tommy's living arrangements." I knew what that meant. David had somehow caught wind of my new lifestyle choice, as he'd probably phrase it. The custody arrangement for our 15-year-old son had been stable for years, but now he was threatening to upend everything. I was still staring at my phone when Sarah waddled into the maternity ward for her checkup. She looked better than last time, less scared, more determined. Melanie had been supporting her, helping her navigate the choppy waters of teenage pregnancy with a grace I wouldn't have expected from someone whose own experience had been so traumatic. "Aunt Mel told me about you two," Sarah said as I checked her blood pressure. "Mom's having a meltdown, but I think it's kind of amazing." I smiled, but my heart was racing. If Sarah's mother knew, how long before the whole town found out? The answer came sooner than expected. That evening at the Nightingale, I noticed the whispers first. A regular customer, Bill, who'd been coming here for decades, was holding court at the end of the bar, his voice getting louder with each drink. "Never thought Mel would turn out to be one of them," he slurred. "No wonder her marriage failed." Melanie's hands shook slightly as she poured drinks, but she kept her professional smile fixed in place. I wanted to reach across the bar and hold her. Consequences be damned. The night got worse when a group of hospital board members came in for their monthly social. Their eyes followed me as I served their martinis, their conversation dropping to pointed whispers. "Did you hear about Martinez?" one of them murmured. "Working in a bar now, and apparently—" I retreated to the storage room, counting bottles of vodka to steady my nerves. Melanie found me there, closing the door behind her. "We can't let them win," she said softly, pulling me into her arms. "David's threatening to take Tommy," I whispered into her shoulder. "Then we'll fight him. I know some excellent lawyers." The storage room was dim and quiet, the muffled sounds of the bar creating a cocoon around us. When Melanie kissed me, it felt like coming home. Her hands traced patterns on my back, and I lost myself in her touch, forgetting everything but the feel of her lips on mine. The door squeaked open. "Oh shit, sorry." Sarah stood there wide-eyed, then quickly shut the door again. We broke apart, laughing despite ourselves. "Your niece has impeccable timing," I said. "She gets that from my side of the family." Back in the bar, Bill was getting rowdier. "Hey Mel," he called out. "Remember when you used to be normal?" Before either of us could respond, Sarah marched up to him, her pregnant belly leading the way. "Remember when you used to mind your own damn business, Bill? My aunt's twice the person you'll ever be." The bar fell silent. Bill sputtered, but Sarah wasn't finished. "And if anyone has a problem with her or Kira, they can take their business elsewhere, right, Aunt Mel?" Melanie looked at her niece with a mixture of pride and fear. Then she did something I'll never forget. She walked around the bar, took my hand in front of everyone, and said, "Right." Some customers got up and left, others stayed, raising their glasses in quiet support. The hospital board members huddled in their corner, no doubt plotting my professional demise. Later that night, after closing, Melanie and I lay tangled together on the office couch, clothes disheveled, hearts racing. We'd finally given in to weeks of tension, letting our bodies say what words couldn't. "I should sell the bar," Melanie said suddenly, "before they run it into the ground." "Don't you dare." I propped myself up on an elbow. "This is your life's work. You're more important." The words hung in the air between us, heavy with meaning. Outside, the neon sign buzzed, casting a soft pink glow through the window. Tomorrow would bring more battles, with David, with the hospital board, with small-town prejudices. But right now, in this moment, we had each other. And somehow, that felt like enough. The hospital board's letter arrived on a Tuesday morning. Professional Conduct Review was printed in bold letters across the top, but the message between the lines was clear: conform or quit. They'd scheduled the hearing for next week, barely giving me time to prepare a defense. Meanwhile, the Nightingale's regular customers were dwindling. Those who remained seemed to fall into two camps, the genuinely supportive and the morbidly curious, waiting to see what scandal would unfold next. I found Melanie in her office, staring at a stack of invoices. The dark circles under her eyes matched my own. "Revenue's down 40%, she said without looking up. "The suppliers are getting nervous about extending credit." "Mel, don't." She finally met my gaze. "Don't say you're sorry. Don't suggest this is your fault. I could quit the bar, keep things professional at the hospital. Maybe if we're more discreet. More discreet? Melanie stood up so suddenly her chair hit the wall. You mean hide, pretend? I spent 20 years doing that, Kira. I won't go back. The door opened, and Sarah wobbled in, now 8 months pregnant. Bad time? Perfect timing, Melanie said, softening instantly. Your mother's been calling again. Let her. Sarah lowered herself carefully into a chair. I heard about the hospital board, Kira. It's bullshit. Language? Melanie and I said simultaneously, then caught each other's eyes and smiled despite everything. The whole town's talking about you too, Sarah continued, but not all of it's bad. My friends' moms want to organize a support rally. A what? Melanie asked. A rally. Outside the Nightingale. They say it's time Oxnard had its own Pride Night. I watched Melanie's face carefully. Her business was everything to her, her independence, her redemption from years of living a lie. Now it was failing because of us. I'm thinking of selling, she said quietly. Like hell you are, Sarah snapped with surprising force. This place helped me when I had nowhere else to go. It's more than just a bar. But Melanie had already made up her mind. That evening, she started calling potential buyers. I watched her from across the bar, feeling helpless as she sacrificed her dream to protect mine. The next morning, I faced the hospital board. Their questions were thinly veiled accusations. Had I compromised patient care? Was my alternative lifestyle affecting my judgment? Was I setting an appropriate example? I thought about Melanie, about Sarah, about every person who'd ever been made to feel ashamed for being true to themselves. My personal life doesn't affect my ability to deliver babies, I said firmly. But your prejudice affects your ability to be decent human beings. I walked out before they could respond, my hands shaking but my head held high. In the parking lot, I called Melanie. I might have just torpedoed my career, I said. Come to the bar, she replied. There's something you need to see. When I arrived, the street outside the Nightingale was filled with people. Rainbow flags waved alongside handmade signs, love is love, support local business, proud of our midwife. Sarah stood at the front, her pregnant belly decorated with glitter, orchestrating chants through a megaphone. Marcus was there with his husband, passing out flyers. Even some of my former patients had shown up, carrying their babies and stories of how I'd helped them. Melanie met me at the door, tears in her eyes. Still think we should be more discreet? I think, I said, pulling her close, that I'm done hiding. Inside, the phone was ringing off the hook, not with complaints, but with reservations. Turns out, Oxnard's LGBTQ community had been waiting for a place to call their own. That night, as we lay in bed, Melanie traced patterns on my skin. I almost sold our future today, she whispered. Our future? The bar, us, everything we could be. I almost let fear win again. I kissed her softly, tasting the remnants of the day's tears and triumph. No more running? No more running. But we both knew the fight wasn't over. The hospital board's decision was still pending, and somewhere across town, David was probably plotting his custody battle. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new fears to face. For now, though, we had this moment, this victory, this small space carved out in a world that wasn't quite ready for us but would have to learn to be. The support rally turned into something bigger than anyone expected. Local news picked up the story. Small town bar becomes battleground for equality. Suddenly, the Nightingale wasn't just a bar, it was a symbol. Regular customers who'd disappeared started trickling back, often with apologetic smiles and awkward attempts at acceptance. Bill, the loud-mouthed regular who'd started the gossip, arrived one quiet Tuesday afternoon. I've been an ass, he announced to the nearly empty bar. My grandson just came out. Made me realize some things. Melanie studied him for a long moment before pouring his usual bourbon. Your grandson's welcome here, Bill. So are you, if you can behave yourself. The hospital board's decision came through email, a formal reprimand but no dismissal. The deciding vote had come from Dr. Chen, whose twins I'd delivered last year. Personal life is personal, she declared. Professional excellence is what matters. But the real turning point came from an unexpected source. Sarah's water broke during a busy Friday night at the bar. Don't you dare deliver my baby here, she gasped between contractions. Wouldn't dream of it, I said, already calling an ambulance. The health department would shut us down for sure. The next 12 hours transformed everything. Sarah's mother arrived at the hospital, face pinched with disapproval until she saw Melanie holding her niece's hand through each contraction. Something shifted in her expression as she watched her sister coaching Sarah through the pain, witnessed the gentle way I guided the baby into the world. "It's a girl," I announced, placing the squealing infant on Sarah's chest. Through tears, Sarah looked at her mother. "I'm keeping her, and I want Aunt Mel and Kira in her life." Her mother's resistance crumbled as she held her granddaughter for the first time. "She has your eyes, Mel. Just like you did when I had my daughter," Melanie finished softly. The room fell silent except for the baby's quiet coos. Years of unspoken pain hung in the air until Sarah's mother finally whispered, "I'm sorry, Mel. We were wrong back then. About everything." Later that evening, at the bar's first official Pride night, Sarah insisted on making an appearance with her newborn daughter. She was greeted like a returning hero. The baby passed carefully from one admiring patron to another. "I've named her Hope," Sarah announced, "because that's what this place gave me when I needed it most." Melanie disappeared into her office, overwhelmed. I found her staring at the old photograph of herself at 16, holding her own baby girl. "I gave her up," she said quietly. "But I never stopped wondering about her, every birthday, every milestone." "Maybe it's time to find her," I suggested. "What if she hates me? What if she's been looking for you too?" The door creaked open, and Tommy, my son, poked his head in. He'd been helping tend bar on weekends, much to his father's dismay. "Mom, Mel, you're missing everything," he said. "Sarah's baby just spit up on that stuffy banker who complained about the rainbow flags." Melanie laughed through her tears. "Can't miss that." As we returned to the bar, I watched my son expertly mixing virgin cocktails for Sarah. Saw Melanie's sister cradling her granddaughter, noticed Dr. Chen from the hospital board raising a toast with her wife. The Nightingale had become more than just a bar. It was a sanctuary, a meeting place, a home for anyone who needed one. "Ready for the big announcement?" Melanie squeezed my hand. I nodded. We'd been planning this for weeks. Melanie clinked a glass for attention. "Tonight, we're not just celebrating Pride. We're celebrating family, the ones we're born into and the ones we choose. And speaking of family," she pulled out a small velvet box and my heart stopped. The entire bar fell silent, waiting for what came next. Through the window, the neon sign cast its familiar glow, and somewhere in the distance, a siren wailed, the sound of another baby on its way into the world. This was our moment of truth, and we were finally ready for it. The Nightingale's transformation happened gradually, like dawn breaking over the horizon. The old neon sign remained, but beneath it hung a smaller rainbow one, "Everyone welcome." Inside, the changes were more profound. We converted the back room into a coffee shop that opened early, my idea, inspired by that first late-night meeting. "For all the other insomniacs and night shift workers," I explained. The morning crowd grew steadily, a mix of nurses ending their shifts, early bird seniors, and young people seeking a safe space. Melanie's proposal that night had been perfectly imperfect. She'd dropped the ring, and we'd spent 10 minutes searching for it under tables while the crowd cheered us on. When we finally found it, we were both laughing so hard we could barely speak. But her "will you" and my "yes" were clear enough. The wedding planning took a backseat to more immediate changes. Sarah's baby Hope became the bar's unofficial mascot, napping in a portable crib in Melanie's office while her mother finished high school. The regular customers doted on her, and even Bill appointed himself honorary grandfather. Tommy took the changes in stride, better than I'd expected. "Mom," he said one day while helping me stock the coffee station, "Dad's being stupid about all this. I told him I want to stay with you and Mel." David fought it at first, but eventually, reality won out. Our son was old enough to choose, and he'd chosen us. The custody battle ended not with a bang, but with a reluctant handshake outside the courthouse. The harder battle was Melanie's search for her daughter. We hired a private investigator, sent letters to adoption agencies, and waited. Months passed with no response, but Melanie refused to give up hope. "She's out there," she'd say, watching Hope crawl across the bar's floor during afternoon lull. "When she's ready, she'll find us." One morning, as I was finishing my hospital shift, a young woman walked into the maternity ward. She had Melanie's eyes and a familiar half-smile. "I'm looking for Kira Martinez," she said. "I heard she's marrying my birth mother." The coffee shop was just opening when we arrived at the Nightingale. Melanie was behind the counter, showing a new barista how to make her signature lavender latte. She looked up when the bell chimed, and time seemed to stop. Some moments defy description. Some stories don't need neat endings tied up in perfect bows. Life, I've learned, is messier and more beautiful than that. Sarah brings Hope to the bar every Sunday for family dinner now. Tommy tends bar part-time while applying to medical school. David comes in occasionally for coffee, making awkward but genuine attempts to understand. Bill still holds court at the end of the bar, but now he's the first to welcome nervous newcomers seeking refuge. The hospital board eventually appointed me head of obstetrics. Though I still pick up occasional bar shifts, some habits are hard to break. Melanie and I share coffee at 3 a.m. more often than we should, talking about everything and nothing, planning our wedding, dreaming about the future. Some nights, when the last customers have gone and the coffee machines are cooling down, we dance slowly between the tables, just the two of us. The neon sign paints patterns on the floor, and outside, the world keeps turning, keeps changing, keeps surprising us with its capacity for love and acceptance. Remember that first night? Melanie will ask, her head on my shoulder. When you came in looking like a zombie, desperate for coffee? Best cup of coffee I ever had, I'll reply, and we'll both laugh at how far we've come. The Nightingale isn't just a bar anymore, it's a beginning, a sanctuary, a love story. And like all good love stories, it doesn't really end. It just keeps unfolding. One cup of coffee, one baby delivery, one small act of courage at a time. Besides, as any good midwife knows, endings are just another way of saying something new is about to be born.